Okay, so welcome everybody to the Internews Google Hangout on our pilot project. So I'm not going to take a lot of time, but this is the third Hangout that we do on the two pilot projects that we funded this year. One is EGN pilot project on sensor journalism, and the other one is we have Maria to present the Ukrainian pilot project on basically visualizing budget in Ukraine. So I'm gonna, I don't know who the two wants to start.
I will start.
Oh, you can start, perfect.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna just give the word to you. If you want just to kind of like describe a little bit how the project, what the project was for people that are kind of like tuning in for the first time, and just give us an overview of what the pilot was originally and then how it is going. And then I know that you guys are kind of almost closing the pilot, so if you have any interesting lessons learned or any interesting kind of like future ideas of how this could become something more solid than just a pilot project, please feel free to share it with us.
Sure. Okay, I'll start. Yeah. So the original pilot project, which is called Open Budget in Ukraine, is a cooperation of Internews here and United Nations Development Program Office in Ukraine. And our idea was to select 3 municipalities in Ukraine and teach the local authorities and journalists and activists the issues about budget, how the local budget is formed, what are the categories of expenditures and incomes and how they are formed, and what are the tools that citizens have and how they can influence the budget formation. So the pilot was launched in March this year, and due to the events in Ukraine, like political crisis and Euromaidan, it took us some time to launch it actually, and maybe it wasn't such a high priority for us in Ukraine right now, because there is a war conflict on the east of the country, and budget issues seem rather irrelevant for us. But anyway, the pilot was launched in March. In April, we had 3 workshops in those 3 cities that were eager to participate. And then in May, we had a training for journalists on budget issues and data visualization. And basically in June, UNDP posted a call for requests and to develop the software. And originally, the pilot project wanted to develop 3 tools that will help municipalities to visualize their budgets. When we conducted workshops in April, we understood that people think mostly the same way with slight differences in the ideas. So we decided to go with just, sorry, I'm missing the chat. Is something important there? No? Sorry. Okay. So we understood that people think almost the same, and the idea is the same, and we decided to go not with 3 different tools, but to have instead one software that will be open sourced, and any municipality in Ukraine will be able to use it. With this idea, so it's like changes from idea to reality, and this is our lessons learned, that it's rather like, invent one thing instead of 3 different one. And in June, UNDP selected, or in July, I don't remember exactly, it selected a developing company that will develop the software for us. And just now they finished it. I will show you what we have now. It's been 4 months, and I'll explain why it took such a long time, because they wanted to develop the logic which will allow, if you change the file, the budget file, the visualization will be changed automatically. And it required the budget consultant work that worked closely with developers, explaining the developers how the logic should work. And this is why it took such a long time to do this. So I'm showing you, just a moment, I will share the screen. Okay. Okay. Can you see it? Oops, I don't hear you.
Yes.
Okay. So we wanted the software to be consisted of 3 parts, and each municipality will have an opportunity to choose anything they would like to have on their website. So right now you can see the budget calendar. You can see my mouse, right? How it shows where, because it's in Ukrainian and I know it makes no sense for you. Okay, so this is the budget calendar, and there are several options that municipalities can choose. First of all, they can present their calendars as timeline. You can see here. It goes months, and it has basically two roles, like the society is in orange and the authorities, and it shows what process are at this moment happening with the budget and who's responsible for this. Okay, so you can make it smaller, you can make it larger to see what is doing, and here comes the explanation of the process, and here shows for example, it starts on September 1st and finishes on September 30th. Okay?
Yep.
Then you can go, just a moment, I will make it smaller. You will have I don't know why it looks so big right now. Okay, you will have this so-called calendar. Here are the months, and it also shows what happens in each month. And if you click, nothing. Okay, if you click here on those colorful lines, it will explain you what the process happens right now. And for example, here it says that from June 1st to June 30th, the society can participate, or civil activists or anyone, the citizen can participate in public discussions, roundtables, focus groups, and everything to develop the budget for the next year. The information is right here, and here is an opportunity to add any kind of information, a Word document, an Excel sheet, or any multimedia or video, anything, basically. So the admin who is responsible for the calendar, they can add anything about this event, what they want their citizens to know. Also, it will have such a thing as an important date. It's right here, you see, it says 31 days left before reporting period or something like that. So admin also pulls what is an important date is coming, and when you come to the website you see that, for example, 10 days is left for your propositions, or 10 days is left for discussing the budget with local authorities. And also another component of the calendar is right here. You can see it in red and green, and red is city and green is society, and it shows, for example, that society right now is happening meetings with local authorities on discussing the budgets, and it shows the percentage of how much time has already passed. So 67% of the time has passed. You've got 30% till this process ends, and you will not be able to discuss the budget anymore. And what is the good thing of this calendar? Also here you can put your email address and subscribe for the updates, notifications, whatever for the calendar. So if you are subscribed, you will receive important information about the events that happen with the budget. The good thing that cities can choose, it's like, Lego, and each part is separate and can work separately. So basically they choose which part they want to be. It can be all, it can be one, it can be timeline, it can be this, or only this, anything. And also, I didn't show you. Just a moment. There is one more, but here, for example, you will see the calendar for a month. Yeah, like it made like a Google Calendar, or you can choose week. It comes this week, or you can choose even day and see what's happening on this day. So it's really helpful if everything will work properly. So this is budget calendar. This is one part of our visualization. The second part, the most complicated one, is visualization of incomes and expenditures. And I will show you just a moment. Okay, right here you can see that here is written the visualization will be available in 5 types. You can see circles, then tab sunburst sequences, tree map, and circles. Blah blah blah, like 5, and the 6th, which is the tree map, is not ready yet. It will be added a bit later. And again, the municipality can choose any of this kind of visualization. They upload just one file, and it automatically builds in visualization they chose. They want bubbles, they choose bubbles. They want sunburst, they do sunburst. And here is the example of incomes. So in green, you see how much money was earned during last year. You press it, and on the right here, there will be information, explanatory information. What does it mean? Because the budget is consisted of basket. I don't know. It's called here basket 1, basket 2, and transfers from the central budget. It's really complicated. So here, everything will be explained. What this category means, where it comes from, who is responsible for it, and also you can add here any multimedia material you want. It can be infographic. Right now it's like an example, you can see it, or video, or you can upload any document, anything basically. So here, if you click the circles, you will see that it goes like smaller, and for example here is map. It is added as multimedia. So you see it goes smaller, 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 and here when you press this bubble, an explanation appears what this category means. So these are circles, and it's made, yeah.
The multimedia component on the right side, is it something that everybody can add something, or only the moderators and the people managing the website can add information?
Only the moderator.
Okay, only. And the moderator are the municipalities themselves?
Yes, yes. Okay. Yes. It was built on where does my money go. They are open code. This first part of visualization, and then come, for example, tab sunburst, and you can see that in the middle it's like 100% of all incomes makes this amount of money. And for example, you press here, it says 55% comes from here, then 22% comes from the other part. And the good thing is that you can see small categories that you can pressing here. Why it doesn't come? Okay, something. Oh, the idea is that it will the circle opens up and it shows all the categories. I don't know why right now it doesn't work. But you can go deeper in the smallest categories, and here you will have all the explanation and the amount of money. Okay. Then this is basically the other kind of visualization, and it also has the same, like 55% comes from this income, and then goes layers. Like 55% is consisted of 20% from this part, 14 from here, and so on forth. And basically the municipality will decide on their own how deep they can go. If they want just 1 layer or 2 layer, or they can 3, 4, 5, you know, go deeper and deeper into the categories. Tab 3 map, it's not ready yet, but basically it will look like blocks with incomes and expenditures. And tab circles will say, again, if you press those, it's not right now, it's not ready, but if you press circles, it will give you the same information about the categories. So the municipality will choose which of the 5 or all 5 they want to use. Okay?
Yep.
Yeah. So on this will be based and expenditures and incomes. And I think this is basically it. This is now hosted on a temporary hosting, let's say, and there is another project in there is another issues that is funded by European Council in Ukraine, and we cooperated with them, and they are developing a budget portal which will have all information about budgets in Ukraine, and we agreed with them that our software will be posted on this portal, so every municipality will be able to download it. So this is our plans for our next, dissemination of information. Preliminary, the portal will start working in January. Meanwhile, this software, as I talked to our UNDP partner, they said that the logic is written. The only thing they have to finish is, he said, beautification, like finishing up the details, colors, fonts, all these kinds of things. And he said that in the beginning of December it will be ready, and we will distribute information about this software among our 3 municipalities and see how they react. And in January we will have workshops in every city teaching admin people in municipality. Basically, financial department is responsible for budgets, and they have people who are working with those Excel sheets, entering all the incomes and numbers, all that stuff. So we will work with them and teach them how to enter the information and how to support those products. This is our plans. And our next plan also that Internews can work closely with. Once the municipalities start using the software, we will bring journalists of the city for a workshop talking about budgets and how they can use this instrument to dig into the numbers and find corruptions and make analytical articles about budget of their cities. So this is our plans for the future, and our lessons learned of this pilot. I would say that nobody expected that that the budget topic is so hard for understanding, and it took us longer than we expected to develop this software.
Well, it makes sense. I have a couple of questions for you. You said that the plan in the longer term is to actually have every municipality in Ukraine to use the software?
Yeah, it's ideal.
So the software is free and open source, so everybody can download it and use it. I don't know if you know the answer to this question, but I'll ask it anyway. Do you think that the way the software is designed is very particular to the way the budget is designed in Ukraine, or do you think that this kind of software could be potentially used, for example, in another country?
I know the answer to this question. This visualization was built specifically for Ukrainian reality, and I will show you again. It uses the file the type of file which is used by municipalities to report on their budgets. It's DBF file, and if you see my screen, it's here. Just a moment. Doesn't work. Why it doesn't work? Okay, here you can see the file named, and it says DBF. So it's DBF file, and if you have DBF file, basically it will work for your municipality. But also it uses, you know, all the budget categories. I don't know how in the other countries, but I think this is the same. They have special codes. Yeah. For example, health is coded with one numbers and education with the others, and this visualization is also built for those codes to, you know, to take the information from the document and make a circle from it.
Yeah. There's a couple of questions from Alison and also from Willie, and the first question is, if it's the municipality that's entering the information and they are responsible for doing that, how are we sure that the information that they're entering is accurate? You were talking before, for example, about corruption, right? If I'm a corrupted official, I will use the data to mask that. So how can we make sure that the information in the platform is actually accurate information?
Well, we can't. It just depends on their honesty and willingness to open the data. And actually, according to Ukrainian legislation, this data is open. But like where this idea came from, the data is in such difficult format in huge Excel sheets that visualize it and make it easier, because with those circles or flowers or I don't know, this kind of visualization, it's easier to perceive to accept the information and to understand it. So basically we cannot, how to say,
verify that.
Verify or ensure that the information is correct. It just, if the municipality already agreed to use the software, because they are not obligated to do it. They are obligated to post an Excel sheet on their website, that's it. And if they are willing to use the software, I think it says about their, you know, openness, and they will post true information. Do
you think that when you were talking before about future plans, do you think it would make sense when you guys are going to start doing workshops with the journalists to actually not just teach the journalists how to use the software, but also teach them how they can relate what's in the platform to the massive Excel spreadsheet you were talking before? Because in that case, they will be the one that can actually cross-reference that data and then go back to the municipality and say, this number doesn't match what you published before, for example.
Yes, I think this is a good idea, and it can be used. And the journalist can be those guards that will, you know, control the accuracy of the data. And if not accurate, they will bring it to public.
Yeah, and there's also another question which I'm also really interested in, is when you were doing this project with the municipalities, what was their incentive to want to participate in the project? Because you said before they're not obliged, right? They can say, thank you very much, we only have to publish the spreadsheet, so why should we do all of this work to visualize it? So what was their incentive who wanted to participate in this project?
Ukraine, and I think like many countries in the world, joined this open data governance or country, something like that, you should make your all the how to say it's in internet. You can find all kind of information about the decisions of local municipalities, and they should be transparent and open. And as far as I know, Ukraine has got some obligations like for in front of European Union to make the information open. And also the municipalities that we partnered are so-called you know, they are open for innovation and they are not afraid of it. So we started with them, and then we'll spread information like to other municipalities. And also after our Euromaidan revolution, people are talking about, like, you know, striving for better and going to Europe and make everything open and transparent, and then you can control your local authorities and how the taxes that you pay are spent. So it's like on a everybody talks about that, and those kind of tools will give people information actually, and tools how they can control their local authorities.
So this might be farther down the line, but what are some of the strategies you're thinking about to publicize the platform to citizens?
To publicize the platform for citizens, to spread among citizens. Yeah. Well, we didn't think about it, like, you know, thoroughly, and our idea was to host those software on our partners' website about budget. And once the municipalities launch the software on their websites, then bring journalists and maybe make press conference or something like an event that they will write about and bring people's attention to that it was launched and it's up there on the website and they can use. But I also think that the first clients of this software are journalists and public activists. So we will try to involve firstly them, and then through them we will spread information to other citizens. I think so.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That was really, really interesting.
It's really impressive.
Yeah.
Full glory yet.
It took us such a long time, but anyway.
Well, that's always the case when you're trying to build a software. I can tell you that, that's not just particular of Ukraine.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we can switch to Willie.
Sure.
And then we have the chat open, so if people have other questions, they may just write it in the chat. But now we can switch to Willie and hear a little bit more about the Sensor Journalism Project.
Sure. Well, thank you both. Thank you all for having me. It's definitely been an exciting project, and we're really appreciative of the pilot funding. It's taken us into some new territories and new ways of thinking, and I think that's exactly what it was designed for. So what I'm going to do today, I'd like to tell you a story about how this project came to be and what happened, and as you requested, some of the key lessons learned. But as with all things in life, and especially with media and journalism, there is a story behind this project. So I'd like to start there. I'll start sharing my screen. Okay. Let's see. All right. Is that coming up very tiny?
Yeah. It's getting bigger.
Okay. There we go. All right. So, sensor journalism for monitoring air pollution. So, this is the monitoring of air pollution is a global issue. It has some of the highest rates of impact on human health, and it's an environmentally caused problem. So, as I said earlier, I'm going to take you through this story. So my name is, I'll go back. You're taking a picture.
Yes.
Yeah. So my name is Willie Schubert. I work with Internews, the Earth Journalism Network, and part of my job is to help organize networks of journalists throughout the world. And so EJN, the Earth Journalism Network, is a thematic project and part of the global initiatives of Internews. And so we work across the world with partner organizations to help improve environmental coverage. And what I'm going to talk about today is specifically this one project, the Dustuino. And you can find out a lot about Dustuino, how to make it, all of this background documents on the public lab at this web address. And I will be coming back to the public lab a couple times, but just to start, if you want to look, that's the place. So where did the Dustuino really start? It started here in Illinois in June of last year, and it happened at an industrial accident. What you're looking at is a tire fire. And if you guys have ever seen a tire fire, big pillowy clouds of black smoke that burn forever and ever. And in this small town in Illinois, they had a tire fire very, as you can see, close to population. So in America, we have this thing called the Freedom of Information Act, and you can make a request to your government for information. So this is a letter from a school teacher to the EPA, and they're talking about this tire fire and how they had called them and how all of the kids have sore throats, and it's been 3 weeks and nothing has happened. So what's the deal? And the response was, oh, sorry for not introducing myself, and our concern is that soot gets on the children's feet when playing outside. But that's not really how air works. So in subsequent discussions, there was a request for EPA data about the air quality, and their response was that they had none. So in the eyes of data, this thing didn't exist. So that was the first real-world issue, and I know that a lot of people can relate to this. It's a global issue. And so the next step on this timeline, our path, was this conference at Columbia University's Tow Center for Digital Journalism. There was a conference about how journalists can use sensors, which are basically just electronic devices that are collecting data about the environment. And it doesn't have to be about the environment, and I'll get a bit more into what a sensor is, but for our purposes, we're also calling them monitors. So we looked at a variety of them, some fun, like the cicada tracker, which was done by Radiolab, where they put all the designs and how-tos about how to build a temperature detector so that they could collaboratively predict when cicadas would swarm. And something a bit more serious, the SafeCats project, which started after the Fukushima disaster, where people put together low-cost radiation detectors that also logged GPS location, so that you could say more definitively with more accuracy that there is a radiation issue in this location. And we had, roundtable discussions with Post-it notes and all of that innovation-y stuff, and we talked about what are the concerns and the potential positives. So we talked a lot about privacy and what does it mean when you're collecting this very high-resolution information? What are the potential values of being able to cast sunlight on areas where there is no, like a deficit of information? And also, how do journalists distribute enough of these things to actually get accurate information? What's our role? What's the journalist's role in this kind of thing? Because it's typically the government's job to be putting monitoring infrastructure about the environment. And that conference resulted in a working paper called Sensors in Journalism, which I highly recommend you guys read. And it really goes over in depth what is this topic of sensors and journalism. So the next step is where we are, us, the pilot project. So we left this conference with all kinds of ideas and said we should try and do this. We work with this global network of journalists, and we have an opportunity here to maybe fill in some of these gaps and understand our realities a little bit better. So we applied for a pilot, and then we went to another conference, the Society of Environmental Journalists in Chattanooga last year, and I met with this guy, again, Mr. Matt Schroyer, who is a maker, a tinkerer, a educator, and the founder of dronejournalism.org. And, we had a chat over a drink and thought about how we could work together with this pilot project. And everything that I'll be discussing after that bloomed from these initial conversations. So I guess that whole previous part is my pitch for why to go to conferences. And so this is what we created, a sensor journalism and civic science track within the Earth Journalism Network. So a focus on engaging with citizens in a curious way to understand their world better, and to help supplement whatever available is existing, whether it's satellite data or government data, with on-the-ground monitors that we can use to identify hotspots and of areas of interest. And this is the prototype. So what is a sensor? This is our sensor. It's called the Xinye. And what it does is there's a little box right here, and it pulls in air through this intake. And I don't know if you've ever seen, you know, when light catches dust in the air. It works on a very similar principle. So this LED blasts light into the chamber. There's a lens and a detector, a photodiode detector. So it's like a camera that's taking constant pictures of what's in this little chamber, and the detector is sending out a pulse signal that gives you a number of particulate matter. So why did we pick this one? Well, one is that we had scientists who were also looking at this specific device and saying, does it work? Because this thing cost $15. And what they found was it does work at hourly intervals. So we were like, oh, good, scientific backing for what we're doing. And these are what particulates are. So the Dustuino collects both 2.5, PM 2.5, and PM 10. And the size of PM 2.5 is really small. And what it comes from is combustion. So the car exhaust, the power plants, the indoor cook stoves, all of that kind of stuff that you burn. Whereas PM10 is the dust, the pollen, the mold, all the things that you can kind of see sometimes floating in the air. And PM 2.5 is particularly important because it's so small that it can go through your lungs into your bloodstream and cause serious problems. So the way that things are typically done, this is a device that costs around in the thousands of dollars. And the way that it works is you have all these plates, they're plates, and as the particles get smaller, they fall down to lower and lower levels. So it's very accurate, it's not digital, and it's very expensive. So our thing is 15 bucks. It works on those principles that I described. Basically, the light comes in, the particles come in, the backscatter shows up, and it creates this pulse. So if we can do a general reading for $15, how does that relate to the thousands of dollar piece of equipment that the government is using, and how can we use civic science and journalism to promote the knowledge base, the understanding of our environment? So to sum, why did we do the Dustuino? Well, the PM 2.5 is among the highest, has the highest impacts in the world. It's responsible for 3.2 million premature deaths per year, and it's a stage 1 carcinogen like asbestos or tobacco smoke. We had a group of academics who had published research articles looking at data quality. The sensors were cheap enough that we could say, all right, let's see what happens if we send out 5 of these in a targeted area. And that study put out some challenges to the community to say, what is the role of communities and media in monitoring infrastructure? What is that feedback loop from citizen to policymaker and scientist and journalist in between? What is that feedback loop? And put out a challenge for us. So how did we handle that challenge? Well, we worked with Fab Labs, which are places where you have lots of equipment and intelligent people who are willing to work for low or free out of their own madness. And also the maker spaces, so maker spaces and Fab Labs, educational facilities where you integrate community members, you kind of take a collaborative and constructivist learning approach. You learn by doing, you learn by creating and iterating, which is another one of these kind of core pillars of innovation. And we developed this prototype. So this is the first one, and we've gone now through 4 different versions. And what we did with the first prototype was we put it indoors, and we looked at basically bacon. So when you're lighting things on fire in your house, the smoke that comes off the bacon is quite measurable. So did we just make a bacon detector? I mean, how much is that of value? So we need to keep going. We need to keep going. We need to keep checking. We need to keep looking at different things. So now we went to another university, the University of Illinois in Urbana, and we started doing lab tests of these devices, and we thought about another source of indoor air pollution with our lab tests, and that was kitty litter. So I don't know how many people have cats, a lot of people actually, but what we did is we basically did a test where a cat would come in and there's a motion detector and it turns on the Dustuino, and when the cat comes in, it actually also generates a noticeable amount of dust, and we found a solution through experimentation, which to it reduces dust. And we also found that indoor air pollution, at least in the US, has a pretty consistent baseline. So building out the baseline so we can understand what is a real problem. Then we started building out the device for manufacturing, testing out how to make this simpler. So here's the prototype of, this is a Wi-Fi module, here's the sensor, and this is all of the way that it's processed. So now we're building hardware, the actual device to do kits. And here's the kit. This is all you need to build one. And I'll talk more about kits and the future of these kind of, it's kind of like IKEA furniture. So you get all of this stuff in the mail and you put all the pieces together and turn it on and configure it, and you've got one. So we're coming from a low-cost DIY perspective, and that also has some implications for journalism, which I'll get into later. And so we did our first training in Berkeley, and we had 10 of these things there, and we talked about how to make them, and we built them, and Mr. Matt was there, and you know, we were talking about the kits and the issues and yada yada. And then they went out into the world. So this is one of the readings from Indonesia. Our partner there, Clara Rondonluwu, went and put one of these things in her car while she was sitting in traffic, because they inevitably sit in traffic in Jakarta. And we're just checking out to see what were the spikes and taking pictures and noting certain things on her on Waze and being like, oh, traffic stopped here, spike in particulate matter. And just checking things out, being explorative. So the next step after indoor was outdoor. And so we built solar-powered units that were kind of weatherized, a little bit more expensive, and also built on mesh networks. So we wouldn't need the internet to get them to work. And we sent them in a package to Mongolia. So now there's 5 sensors in Mongolia that have been up for about 2 months. And we've been looking at readings and still trying to figure out exactly what to do with the information, but we've been holding trainings on writing about it and just looking at it, observing, because this data was not available. And so people don't know what to do with it or what it means, so there's a training component to it there as well. And then we've been hosting all of this information. This is the website that I mentioned at the very beginning, the Public Lab, on what is it, what are the test results, how do you build one, what are the different research notes, so anyone can make one of these things, post how they used it, any reflections, what they were trying to know, and be part of a community of people who are observing their air. And then one of the more important things, and this is the next step for us, so is partnering with a manufacturer. So we built 25 of these things by hand, but that's really hard. And if you want to get them all over the world, it's really complicated. So we've been looking at a group called Seed Studio, which is based in Shenzhen, and they have a service called Propagate, where you can send in all of these designs and your bill of materials, and they will assemble kits for you that you can then distribute. So our goal is to manufacture 100 of these things before the end of the year, and to start utilizing them in projects and also make them available for sale so that anyone who wants one can get one. So the key lessons for us as part of this project, because it is new, I mean, the pilot and innovation and all of this stuff is meant to be new. And so what's been the most important thing for us is to be open to ideas. Like, not all of these ideas are ours. You know, we're working with community. We're working with Matt Schroyer. We're working with these maker spaces. We're working with the Public Lab. We're working with journalists all over the world. So you need to be open, collaborative, but also patient, because with these new kinds of things, you don't have a set timeline. It's not like a training. It's a very different form of work. So patience is required. And because it is hard, it's important to focus on tough questions that need answering. So for us, air quality was that, because we knew that we could monitor it for cheap. We knew that it was a huge problem, and we knew that it was of interest, that we had people that wanted to do this. So that was important. The other thing was that we needed to include scientists in the project. This is civic science, it's citizen science, it's about people being curious and understanding their world, but having scientists as a part of the project is a very key part of that feedback loop, because they are still kind of arbiters of what is accurate, and that's really important to respect. Conversely, science and learning is a process, not a title. Just because you don't have a master's degree or a PhD in a physical science doesn't mean you can't do science. Science is a method and a process, very much like journalism. So journalism has a method and ethics, but there's citizen journalism too. And it's good if it follows a methodology. Same thing with science. And the last bit is managing supply chains and shipping and customs duties, and the amount of money that you need to pay when one of these things come to your is really expensive and unpredictable. So finding partners like Seed Studio is for us like one of the next big steps in this process, because they can help manage our inventory, they can help manage our shipping, and that is really critical, because that's not really our business, but doing the things that the Dustuino does is our business. So finding new partners for these things outside of the traditional beneficiaries of Internews work is one of the really key lessons, that we're working with a whole different set of beneficiaries. They're these makers, tinkerers, doers, creators, curious people, and that's what's really exciting about this opportunity, is that it does open up avenues to work with these kind of communities. So that's it for me. I guess I'll switch back to my face now. So yeah.
Willie, I have a question. I mean, it looks like I love the going towards make it yourself, because I think that kind of like that's really exciting. That's really what you can kind of like scale. One thing that I'm interested in is, I mean, you know a lot about kind of like the technical issues. So let's say, average journalist in a developing country, which is a lot what we deal with. How difficult it is for one of them, not just to assemble it, because assemble like a mechanical piece, I think it's kind of easy, but how easy it is for them if they don't have any training done or any workshop done specifically with you guys, how easy it will be for them to take it, assemble it, and then program it to do what they need to do. Are we talking about high technical skills, or are we talking about something in between?
Well, I would say that it's probably medium difficulty, and we've been working to do documentation, like very thorough documentation. So a lot of that's on Public Lab. We also have our geojournalism.org website, and we have on our own Earth Journalism website. So we've been kind of propagating the how-to tutorials as much as we can. I think that one of the things that we learned from the training is that this is just so new that it's kind of daunting. Even if it's kind of relatively simple, it's just a whole new reality. Like coding, yes, it does require some coding. Soldering, the manufactured units will not require soldering, but it's a skill like that journalists don't necessarily have. So one of our goals with EJN globally, and I think it's an interesting new model, is the News Lab. So we've been setting up news labs in Brazil and just started in Indonesia, where there are journalists developers, designers, technologists that are a consistent resource, that have a space this kind of project you can. In Indonesia, we've actually been taking the approach of a lending library, where we have a centrally located collection of these things, and if a journalist wants to check it out to help their story, they can come and they can get it configured before they go, and then they can take the device already configured and assembled like you would check out a library book. But I think the real exciting bit in our discussions with Seed Studio is that the people who are likely to buy these things, I mean, yes, journalists and NGO workers, activists, people who want to know more information, but the people who visit that website are people who use the things that they sell. They're the hackers, the makers. They're the ones who are trafficking on those sites. And if it's available for them, we've talked to Seed Studio about being notified about people who have purchased, so that we can say, oh, somebody is setting these up in your country, we should hook them up with a journalist, so that you can start to build those relationships between these communities. And that's how it can be done, because I don't think that, journalists have a lot of tools in the tool belt. It used to be that we wrote articles, and now, pictures, and then, graphics too, and video, and, we're going to start flying drones now. And wait a minute, now I have to start learning how to code these things, plus all these websites. It's like too much work for one person. And that's the reality, is that you can't. You have to start making communities. You have to start building out your network. Like journalists, we're great at making sources. Well, you've got a new set of sources. They're scientists, they're makers, they're your new friends. Go play, have fun, be curious. That's the big picture, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, that's great. I have another question. Is the I know very little about the Arduino software, but would it be possible at a certain point to kind of like start not just doing dust like sensors, as opposed to like water sensors and other type of sensors using the same kind of infrastructure?
Yes. So there is a project that our partners in Brazil have been working on, also with the public lab. It's called the Riffle, and it is a open source water sensing project for conductivity. And what conductivity does is it tells you how much metal is in the water, because basically it's very simple. You run electricity between two things, and in this case they've had some fun with it, and the design is basically a water bottle, and in the cap you place two headphone jacks, like broken headphone jacks, one of these things. Yeah. There it is. Yeah, one of these, and you run a current through it, and depending upon how well the electricity goes, you can say, oh, there's salt or heavy metals in this water, and it's a proxy indicator for pollution. And the idea is, let's make it low cost, let's make it freely available stuff, like things that you can get in any country, and let's make it fun. So there is work being done in Brazil and in the US, in the Northeast, on water, low-cost water quality sensors. And also, it's important, one of the things that we did as part of this project is we've participated in a Sensor Journalism Google group, which has a lot of expertise. Like if you want to join it, it's kind of like, there's DDJ, the Data Driven Journalism listserv. It's kind of like that, but for just the sensors and monitors. And that's another new resource that's available to find expertise. So if you're tracking these kind of things, yeah, that's a good place to join.
Yeah, that's interesting. I have a last question, which is, you were talking about this before, right? One of the experience that I had when kind of like trying to teach journalists how to use specific technology is kind of like their reaction is kind of like this sense of overwhelm, kind of like say, oh my god, like I'm just a journalist, why do I need to learn how to code? or how to do these kind of things. And but on the other side, it's, at least in my experience, it's always kind of like a you know, the more they see the usefulness of what they're going to be doing or what the information that they're going to be getting from this sensor, the less, you know, they're going to feel the sense of overwhelming. But I'm curious, you know, do you think that at a certain point, you know, journalists will have to have those skills, like knowing a little bit of coding, and you know, it's kind of like, it's also very much a question for Maria, right? Like, will we arrive at a certain point where a journalist will have to be able to do data visualization by themselves, or, you know, will have to have statistical analysis kind of skills, or it's better to go towards the direction that you were talking about, which is you don't have to get those skills, but you can start collaborating with communities or with groups that have those skills already?
Yeah, in my perspective, I've learned a tremendous amount just by going and participating in other communities that are maybe outside my comfort zone. Like, you learn a lot by talking to people, and I think that's the fundamental skill of journalism. You learn a lot by talking to people, and that's what translates. Will all the journalists have to learn how to code? Maybe. I mean, I talked to this guy, Martin Hiller, who he studies all of the data that's created and moved. Like, that's one of his things. Like, how much data is there in the world? And he did a study, and he found out, like, most of human knowledge, everything that we've ever created, has happened in the last 2 to 3 years. Like, all of the books, all of the CDs, all of the tapes, all of the everything, less. Like, all of our stone carvings, less than the last 2 to 3 years. So how do we understand our world? Is that our job? I think if that's our job, then yes, we will have to learn how to code. We will have to learn to sort through this information. But are we here to do it alone? No.
Yeah. Maria, what do you think?
Just a moment. Okay. I never heard about this idea about communities, because Ukraine hasn't come to it yet. And on every training, we here in Internews do a lot of training for journalists, and we are trying to teach them different kind of skills. And everybody understands that it's impossible that one person will do the visualization, will do coding, you know, will do analyze the statistics, and idea about communities is really great, I think. Yeah.
Okay, I don't have any other questions. Do you have any question, Natalie?
No. This has been so interesting and so great to have a chance to chat with you guys.
Yeah, thank you for the Hangout.
Yeah,
well, I will probably do a final Hangout maybe in a month or a couple of months from now, just to recap some of the kind of final findings of the 2 pilot project. But that looks fantastic, and thank you very much for your time.
Yeah. Thank you too.
Yeah, have a good one.
Bye.
Okay. Goodbye.